This is section 6.5. If you look on your calendar, you'll notice that the topic is powers of polynomials and product of binomial conjugates. So the first thing that we're going to look at, this is our rule. It's called raising a product to a power. What that means is a product is when you multiply two things together. So in any product that you have, where you are raising that product to a power, meaning your exponent, the rule says all you have to do is just pop that exponent in and apply it to each of the parts of the product, okay, each of the factors. I'm going to go through the y. I do that just because I have a terrible memory and I can't memorize anything. So I like to see the y. I won't ever ask you guys to do it. But I know when I was going through school and learning these things, I'd ask my teacher why, and they just couldn't tell me why. They said it was just because it was the formula. So I like to do these. So just follow along. You don't have to write this part down. You can if you want, though. So the why does this work is, let's just try a little what if. Okay, so what if, let's just play around here. What if, let's say, let's just put in some numbers so it makes sense. A equals 3. B equals 4, N equals 3. I'm just pulling these out of nowhere. Okay, those are just totally random. I just made those up. Then, if I had A times B, that would be 3 times 4, to the N power, which I just made up was 3. Do you agree that 3 times 4 cubed, if I didn't want to write it that way that the rule says, I could write it this way, right? Is I could say 3 times 4, 3 times 4, 3 times 4. That would be fine, right? That mathematically makes sense. And then if I wanted to, I could also go like this, right? I could change the order because the order doesn't matter when we multiply, right? So I could have 3, 3, 3, 4, 4, 4. 3 times 3 times 3, I could rewrite that as 3 cubed. And 4 times 4 times 4, I could write as 4 cubed. Okay, so it's just what I could do if I made up this problem. Based on the rule, though, okay, so based on our formula, what our formula said to do is when we have 3 times 4 cubed, what our rule says to do is to pop that 3 in to each of those pieces to get 3 cubed, 4 cubed. And hey, would you look at that? Do they match? Yeah, they sure do. So that's how this formula is working. So the formula is a shortcut so that you don't have to go through the long way of doing it. But now you can see in this why, you can see why it's working. Okay, so that's kind of cool. All right, I like doing that. So we don't have to go the long way anymore. That's just so that you understand that there's a purpose and where that formula came from. Okay, it wasn't just magic. All right, so this first example, actually, you know what? I'm going to give you 2 of them. Go ahead and try these 2 examples. Just give it your best shot. Right now, just hit pause, give it a try. When you're ready, go ahead and play again. Okay, so hopefully you had a chance to apply the formula to these 2 examples. And with this first one, we have the quantity 4a cubed. So the rule says just go and put that 3 on in here to both the 4. So we got 4 cubed and a cubed. Now 4 cubed, you can either type this into your calculator as 4 times 4 times 4, or on your calculator there's a little button that looks kind of like this. It's like a little caret. That's what they call it, as a caret. Kind of looks like an arrow upwards. So if you did 4 on your calculator, that button, and then a 3, it should give you 64. And we can't do anything with the a cubed, so we're done. Just 64 a cubed. This next one is a little bit trickier because that whole -2, that's our whole quantity that we want to raise to the 4th power. So I'm going to put that in parentheses. So we have -2 to the 4th, x to the 4th, y to the 4th. -2 to the 4th is 16. If you tried the trick that we did up here with our calculator, what happens is your calculator is very literal with the order of operations. So if all you did was just negative 2 to the fourth, it's going to do just this 2 to the fourth first and then slap on the negative on the end. So what you would want to do is put that in parentheses. So in your calculator, do parentheses, negative 2, parentheses, and then your caret to the fourth, and then you'll get that positive 16. And we can't do anything with x to the fourth, y to the fourth, so we'll just rewrite those, and looks like we're done. All right, cool. So that was one rule. The next thing we're going to look at, this is called the square of a binomial. So yeah, you might want to hit pause because there's a lot of writing for those formulas. So what we have here is the quantity a plus b squared equals a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. Or if you have the quantity a minus b squared, that equals a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. Those are also known as perfect square trinomials. So again, this is meant to be a shortcut is what the formula is all about, but still I like to see the why. So I'll show you, I might show you both of them. Let's start with the a plus b squared and figure out why is a plus b squared? Why is it? Where did that 2 come from, right? Because it kind of looks weird the first time that you see it. So if I had a plus b squared, that would be a plus b times a plus b, right? Now let's go ahead and FOIL this. So first be a squared. Outer would be an ab. Inner, b times a. Can I write that as ab? I can, because multiplication doesn't matter what order you do it in. So plus ab plus finally last b squared. So I have a squared. How many ab's do I have? 1, 2. That's where that 2 comes from. 2ab plus b squared. And the other one will work out the same. I'll go ahead and do it. A minus b times a minus b. We'll FOIL it first. Outer, so we have a minus ab minus another ab. Negative times a negative is a positive b squared. A squared, we have a minus ab minus another ab for minus 2ab plus b squared. So now you can see where those formulas are coming from. Okay, so they weren't just made up. It's because it's a pattern, so it will work every time. So let's go ahead and try it. I'll show you what it looks like when you actually apply it to these problems. So here's an example. The quantity x plus 3 squared. Now mathematically, yes, obviously you could go ahead and multiply it out the way that we just showed the y and the one before. But there are some quiz questions and homework questions that will specifically say to use the square of a binomial rule. So I actually need to see the work exactly the way that we're about to do it right now, okay? Because it's actually using the rule, not using FOIL. So one of the rules had the plus, that's the top one, right? And the other rule had the minus. So for this example, x plus 3, it's going to be that top one. I'm going to rewrite it off to the side real quick. Just so that when I scroll, it's still out on our screen. So I'm just rewriting the rule. So we know it's that rule. And the rule talks about these A's and B's. So off to the side, I like to jot down what does A really equal for us and what does B really equal for us. And in our case, what do you think A is? If you look at the pattern, something plus something squared. Our first something, if you look close, you can see that's the x. And how about B? B is going to be that 3, right? Because it's the second piece. So now what we have to do, remember, when it says this on the quiz, you have to do it this way, not multiply it out with FOIL. Okay, so the rule says that we take a squared. So this is our rule, right? A squared. What is our A? Our A is x. So this equals x squared. And then it says every time you're going to put a plus. Then you're going to put a 2 because that's what the rule says. And we know where that 2 comes from because it was those 2 ABs, right? So plus 2 times your A times your B So I'll go ahead and put those in parentheses, x, and we said b was 3. And then it says in our rule here, then we're going to do a plus b squared. So plus b was 3, so 3 squared. Now if we simplify, x squared plus, again, multiplication, the order doesn't matter. So 2 times x times 3. You could do 2 times 3 first, so you get 6x plus 3 squared is 3 times 3 is 9. Okay, I'm going to say it again. If you were to go through and write it out like this, x plus 3, mathematically, yes, you would get the same answer. So if you wanted to check your work by doing that in FOIL, you can. But on the quiz, when it says that you have to use this rule, I'm going to cross it off and you won't get full credit. Okay? You have to actually use the rule. How about you go ahead and start this one. First, figure out which rule you're going to use and try to figure out what the A and the B are. Don't go plug them in just yet. Just write down which rule you're going to use and what A and B are. So go ahead and hit pause and do that real quick, and then hit play when you're ready. All right, so hopefully you had a chance to write that down. First, the rule is going to be A, let's see, the A, now we have the minus, right? That's the one that we're looking at now. A minus B squared equals A squared minus 2AB plus B squared. You know what, to be honest, I cannot memorize anything. I cannot memorize this. So if I were to have a test on this and it told me that I had to use this rule, I actually would go through and generate it this way with the A's and the B's so that I had this part of the formula written on my paper. Okay, so, but if you can memorize stuff, cool, go ahead and do that. All right, so, and then I also said to identify what A and B are. So remember, A is that first piece. In this case, this one was a little bit trickier. It's that whole 4A. And B is equal to 9. All right, if you want to give it a try to go ahead and plug it in, you can. Just be very careful with that. Whole A is 4A. Okay, so you can hit pause, hit play when you're ready. Okay, so let's go ahead and give it a try. A squared is 4A, but I said it was that whole 4A, right? So 4A squared minus, remember there's that 2 in there, times A. It's going to look a little bit messy. 4A times B is 9. And then what do we do? A plus. B was 9, right? A lot of people want to say B is negative 9. But remember, in our actual formula here, it has the negative. So that means B really is just that 9. Okay, so plus 9 squared. Now we have a little bit extra work to do. This was our last rule that we just looked at. Well, actually that first one, right, is that you want to apply that 2 to both guys in the parentheses. So 4 squared is 16. A squared. Now this, I already worked this out on my calculator here. I did a negative 2 times a 4 times a 9, and I got a negative 72, and that's A. Plus 9 squared is 81. And we're done with that one. All right, I think we just have one more to look at for today. This one is the product of a sum and difference, also known as binomial conjugates. This one says that if you have A plus B times the quantity A minus B, it's going to be A squared minus B squared. This is also known as the difference of squares, and you will see this so many times the rest of the quarter. This difference of squares will keep coming up in almost every section. Okay, it's super popular. And just because I like to, let's do the y real quick. Let's just make sure that it works, okay? So we're going to go the long way. So you do not want to go the long way on your quiz because you want to show me that you know the rule. But the long way will prove why it works, why it's a shortcut. So first, A squared, outer, a minus AB, inner, a plus AB, Last, positive and a negative is a negative b squared. Equals, we have a squared minus an ab plus an ab, so those canceled each other out, minus a b squared. So this one's kind of cool because you just take whatever that first thing is in both of them, square it, and then do minus whatever that second thing is in both of them and square it. So for our first one, I have the quantity 2a minus 7b times the quantity 2a plus 7b. So off to the side, I'm going to put what's my a and what's my b. And a is just whatever that first piece is. So that's 2a. And b is 7b. So what the formula says to do is just take that first piece, and it's that whole first piece, so I'm going to wrap it in parentheses, square it, and subtract that whole second piece, 7b, and square it. I want you to hit pause. You go ahead and try it from here. See if you can finish it off real quick, and then hit play when you want to check your answer. So if we take this 2, we're going to have 2 squared a squared minus 7 squared b squared. Are we done? Nope, we can keep going. 2 squared is 4a squared minus 7 squared is 49 b squared. Are we done? Yep, that looks good. Oh, I actually do have one more problem that I want to show you. Some of these problems will say to write in standard form. That just means, it's just a fancy way of just saying simplify. Okay, just keep the equation going. We're going to have your highest exponent leading down to your lowest one. Okay, so this one says to write in standard form. The first thing that I want you to notice is, do you see a familiar rule of something that we were looking at today? Do you see a piece of that we could pull out that looks familiar? Hopefully you notice, I'm going to try to just write right over the top. This x minus 1 squared, that was one of the rules that we talked about today. And what we said about that rule is that we said anytime you have something minus something squared, that you don't have to do that whole FOIL. You could just rewrite it as a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. Okay, so if I were to try to write this equation in standard form, we're just going to keep working through it here, equals this 3. And then there's going to be a big section in here that's going to be all of this a squared minus 2ab plus b squared, right? And then don't forget this plus 2. A lot of people forget that. So go ahead and practice. Try to write that x minus 1 squared. Try to write out that long way. And notice that a equals x. B equals, what does B equal? That 1, right? Again, it's not negative 1 because in here it's already accounted for. So just the straight B is just 1. So go ahead and try to write out what would go in the parentheses here. Hit pause, hit play when you're ready. Okay, so if it is a squared, and we said that a equals x, I'm going to have an x squared. Then the formula says to do a minus 2 times a is x times b is 1, which you don't have to write in there. I'm just going to leave it just so I hopefully don't lose you. Plus b squared, b is 1 squared. Okay, and then we didn't forget that plus 2. Let's go ahead and simplify what we have. So 3 times, we have x squared. Minus 2 times x times 1 is just minus 2x. And what is 1 squared? 1 squared is just 1 times 1, so that's 1. Again, don't forget that too. A lot of people forget that. What should I do next? We're going to want to distribute, right? So go ahead and distribute that 3, simplify it, and then hit play when you're ready. Okay, so 3 times x squared is 3x squared. 3 times a negative 2x is negative 6x. Plus a 3 times 1 is 3. And then we finally add that 2 at the end. And to finish it off, we combine like terms. So we have 3x squared minus 6x plus 5. And that is our final answer. All right, and that finishes up for today. Good job.